Before we dive into today's topic, take a second to hit subscribe. Your support helps us keep researching and making these videos.
On August 12, 2000, a 19,000-ton steel-cased behemoth slipped beneath the freezing waves of the Barents Sea. This was the Kursk, an Oscar II-class submarine on a routine practice mission. Up on the surface, the waters were crowded. A massive Russian naval fleet was actively patrolling the area, stationed safely above to oversee the exercise. The Kursk was an impenetrable war machine, designed to withstand nearly any external threat. However, the catastrophic failure that eventually sank it originated entirely within its own internal systems. Inside the torpedo room, a microscopic weld on a single torpedo casing began to leak. It released a clear, odorless liquid called high-test peroxide, or HTP. On its own, HTP is harmless to humans, but the moment it makes contact with raw copper or brass, it triggers a violent chemical decomposition, releasing gas, oxygen, and searing heat. This diagram shows the reaction.
HTP expands 5,000 times instantly, rupturing the kerosene tank and igniting a half-ton explosion. 135 seconds later, the remaining torpedoes detonated with 4.5 tons of TNT force, sinking the crippled submarine. A single drop of leaked chemical overpowered the submarine's massive armor. While most of the crew died instantly, 23 men survived both blasts and retreated to the rear compartments at the bottom of the sea. Deep in the 9th compartment, those 23 survivors scrambled to seal the heavy steel bulkhead doors, desperately trying to block the floodwaters rushing in from the obliterated front sections. The power failed immediately, and the emergency lights died. In the pitch black, the steel hull began bleeding internal heat out into the Arctic Sea, plunging the room toward freezing temperatures as carbon dioxide levels silently rose. Fumbling in the dark, Captain Lieutenant Dmitry Kolesnikov managed to find a pen and paper. He began writing a calm, factual log of their fading strength and the rising pressure, documenting their final hours for anyone who might find them. An unaided escape from this depth would cause instant death from rapid decompression. Their only option was to wait in the freezing dark and rely entirely on the surface fleet for rescue. Up on the surface, ships had actually detected the shockwave of the blast on their radars. However, because this was a practice mission, they dismissed the noise as a routine part of the drill. It took command 6 hours to even suspect a problem and deploy search helicopters to look for the oil slicks pooling near the exercise zone. As the scale of the disaster became clear, neighboring countries like Norway offered immediate sonar and rescue support. But the Russian military described the event as a minor incident and refused international help. Systemic pride and a fear of international embarrassment stalled the rescue mission. Command hesitated for hours, turning a survivable emergency into a ticking death trap for the men below. To survive, the men relied on portable KO2 cartridges. These devices were designed to scrub toxic carbon dioxide from their breath and generate a small amount of breathable oxygen. This graphic shows how the chemistry works. These cartridges use potassium superoxide, safely converting CO2 to oxygen on the left. But on the right, you see the danger. If this touches a drop of seawater, it triggers a violent, explosive fire. Their only source of air was a chemical compound that could ignite at any moment in the damp, dark compartment. Every breath was a gamble. 14 hours after the explosion, the Russian Navy finally deployed their own rescue submersibles. But the technology was inadequate. One submersible struck the hull of the Kursk during its descent and was forced to resurface. Inside compartment 9, the men were shivering and delirious from lack of oxygen. In the chaos of the dark, a crew member fumbled a KO2 cartridge, dropping it into the icy floodwater on the deck. The chemical reacted instantly. A flash fire erupted in the cramped space, scorching the air and consuming the remaining oxygen, killing all 23 survivors. The crew survived a catastrophic explosion that tore their ship in half, only to be killed by their own survival equipment while waiting for a rescue mission that was paralyzed on the surface. It took days for rescue divers to finally breach the hull of the Kursk. When they entered the 9th compartment, they found no survivors. They did find the note written by Captain Lieutenant Kolesnikov. It was undeniable proof that 23 men had survived the initial blast and waited in the dark for a rescue that never arrived. The initial torpedo blast crippled the vessel, The boat's 23 survivors were ultimately lost to the systemic pride and bureaucratic delays that kept help on the surface until the air inside the Kursk finally ran out. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next video.